Work is done, it's time for some fun. Welcome to The Good Part. Let's go. Hi, my name is Andrew and this is The Good Part. This is the channel I wanted to create because I wanted somewhere I could talk about movies, comic books, TV shows, pop culture, things that I'm really excited about. And I really didn't have an outlet for that, so I created this so I could share all the information that I know to someone like you. Now, I was trying to think of some way to launch this channel with something exciting, and I think I finally came up with that thing. At the end of this month, in 21 days, Avengers Endgame comes out, which is the 22nd movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Which means if you watch a movie a day, starting today, you'll be able to completely watch every single movie, all like 50 hours of content leading up to that movie. But that is a lot of movies to watch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to summarize every movie, tell you what's important in that movie for Endgame, and rank every single one of those movies in the MCU. Because I know that you have a brother, a sister, boyfriend, girlfriend, best friend, mom, dad, someone who's dragging you to see this movie, and you've never seen one before, but it's going to make $280+ million, probably be the most successful movie of all time financially, and be critically acclaimed. So you're going to want to see it, and you're going to want to know what's going on. So without further ado, here's the first episode of Get to the Endgame on Iron Man. Okay, here we go. The first movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Iron Man. It came out in 2008, was the first movie produced by Marvel Studios and distributed by Paramount Pictures. The movie had a budget of about $150 million, but ended up making over $580-something million, which is incredible and what started the MCU as the big phenomenon it is today. It was directed by Jon Favreau, who has a small cameo in this movie as Happy Hogan, and that role will continue to grow over the course of the series. But enough of all that junk. You're here for me to get to the good part, which is exactly what the channel is named. So here we go. Without further ado, the plot of Iron Man. The movie opens up. Tony Stark's in the back of a Humvee, played by Robert Downey Jr. All of a sudden, rockets start raining in on the Humvee. He jumps out, crawls through behind a rock. Another rocket explodes. Psh, Tony blacks out. When he wakes up, he's tied to the chair in a terrorist camp. Cut to 24 hours earlier. Colonel James Rhodes, played by Terrence Howard, in this movie only, is giving his best friend Tony an award. When we look out to the crowd, Tony's not there. Where is Tony? He's in the middle of a casino gambling. Rhodey comes out and he is pissed off because he's like, Tony, where were you? We're supposed to give you this big award. Tony's drunk and he's busy playing games. Terrence says, hey, just make sure you're ready for us to go to Afghanistan tomorrow. Tony says, yeah, sure. As Tony's leaving the casino, he has a run-in with a reporter who asks him all these questions about why is Stark Industries giving weapons away to these terrorist organizations? And he goes, hey, it's just business. He ends up smooth talking the girl though and takes her home. The next morning she wakes up, Tony is gone. Luckily his assistant Pepper Potts, played by Gwyneth Paltrow, is there to take out the trash. An actual quote in this movie. It doesn't hold up well in 2019 in some ways. The reporter ends up leaving. Pepper goes down to check on Tony. He's working on a car. She says, hey Tony, we gotta go to Afghanistan. So they hop in the plane, they go over to Afghanistan. Tony gives this big presentation on the Jericho missile. This missile that he's developing to sell to the government in an effort to fight against terrorists. So he gives the presentation, then we flash forward, Tony wakes back up, he's back in the terrorist camp to where we started the movie. He has a doctor working on him. He's like, whoa, what's going on? The doctor says his heart was actually full of shrapnel, so he had to create this new device called an arc reactor that he put in his chest to help maintain his heart and keep him alive. Tony says, okay, great. All of a sudden the terrorists come in, the 10 rings. And they say, we want you to build us a Jericho missile so that we can use it to attack civilians. And Tony goes, sure, I'll do that. But what he actually does is he teams up with the doctor, Jensen, and they work on developing a stronger arc reactor for his chest that would be able to keep him alive for much longer and not tied to a cord. But he could also create it so it would last for 15 minutes to power a big suit so they could escape. So that's what they do. When the terrorists aren't looking, they start working on building this big suit. Terrorists are thinking he's building them a missile. So they end up building this big suit, and it's almost all ready to go, but all of a sudden the terrorists figure out their plan. Jensen creates a distraction and ends up dying in the process. Tony says that he'll avenge him, wink wink, and they end up escaping. He escapes in this big suit, he flies out of the base and crashes into the desert. The US military finds him and he ends up going back to America. Once in America, he immediately grabs a cheeseburger and holds a press conference. In the press conference, he says, hey, Our company is no longer going to make weapons of mass destruction. And all of a sudden the investors are going insane. They're like, Tony, what are you doing? You can't do that. His business partner, Obadiah Stane, tells him, hey, Tony, this is your father's business. He wouldn't want this. And Tony says he doesn't care. He's in charge. Obadiah says, hey, Tony, you're obviously suffering from PTSD. Why don't you take a few minutes and go hang out back at home, and I'll handle all this business side of stuff. Tony goes, okay. Well, back at his house, he starts working on a powered-up arc reactor, and he says, hey, that suit was really onto something. I think this could be the future of Stark Industries. So he works on tinkering with the arc reactor until he gets it strong enough to where he can power a new suit, one that's more streamlined. And he begins to learn how to fly in that suit, and suddenly Iron Man is born. But he sees on TV that people are wondering where Tony Stark is, and that he hasn't come out of his house, and people are worried about him. So he ends up crashing this big gala. While there, he runs into his business partner, Obadiah Stane, and he learns that Obadiah has been keeping things under the table from him. That Obadiah, they're still developing these missiles, and Tony is angry. So Tony leaves, and he ends up hunting down the 10 rings back in Afghanistan. He flies over there, and he learns that Stark missiles are still being provided to him. So once he's over there, he ends up finding out that Obadiah is the one providing the missiles to the terrorists. So Tony comes back, and he goes to confront Obadiah, but Obadiah doubles back on him and takes Tony out, steals the arc reactor from his chest, and powers up his own suit that he will use against Tony. So now Tony takes an old arc reactor, puts it in his chest, and goes in to fight Obadiah Stane. So him and Obadiah have this big showdown, they're going at each other, and all of a sudden Tony is running out of power in his suit. Luckily, they're on top of a building where a major arc reactor is. He says, hey Pepper, get over here and blow up the arc reactor. So she comes over and she's like, Tony, you're going to die if I do this. Tony's like, it doesn't matter. Blow it up. She blows up the arc reactor. It kills Obadiah Stane. Luckily, it powers up Tony's suit and he's able to live. Day is saved and everyone is excited. However, there's this big thing they have to now hide under the table. What was this big iron suit? Who are they? Why is this man flying through the sky? Luckily, S.H.I.E.L.D., an organization, comes in and says, hey, we'll hide it all under the table for you. We'll just say it's a bodyguard. Tony, just read off these cue cards and say that you were on vacation. So Tony goes out to this press conference and is told to read off these cue cards. But instead, he just looks out at the audience and goes, I am Iron Man. The crowd goes into erupt credits. Then we get a post-credit scene, which is always very important in these movies. Tony walks back into his house, and there, standing in the shadows, is Samuel L. Jackson playing Nick Fury. And he just says one thing to Tony. He says, hey, I'd like to talk to you about the Avengers Initiative. End of movie. Okay, that was a lot of stuff. But what we're going to do is I'm going to slow it down for you and say, hey, don't worry about all of that. That's just the plot of Iron Man. What do you need to know for Avengers Endgame? And I'll tell you, here it is. It's very few things. 1, Tony Stark, like the last line of the movie, is Iron Man. That's it. Then the post-credit scene, Nick Fury found the Avengers. That's what he was talking to Tony about. Iron Man was the first one he spoke to. You saw that. And lastly, Pepper Potts has been by Tony's side since the beginning. That's Gwyneth Paltrow. She's his assistant. And they end up being a major relationship throughout this whole series. And those are the only 3 things you need to know. It's not that complicated. Okay, so you know the whole plot. You understand how it relates to Avengers Endgame. But now you want to know, where does it rank in the MCU? And I'll tell you, it's not that hard of a ranking right now. Right now, at number 1, Iron Man, because it's the first movie we watched. But all that could change tomorrow when we watch The Incredible Hulk. So be sure to tune in to get to the Endgame tomorrow, where we'll rank The Incredible Hulk and give you a full plot summary of it. So this has been The Good Part. I'm Andrew. Thank you for watching.